The fourth lesson. Finally, after many talks, Marguerite walked Eddie through another door. They were back inside the small round room. She sat on a stool and placed her fingers together. She turned to the mirror, and Eddie noticed her reflection. Hers, but not his. "The bride waits here," she said, running her hands along her hair, taking in her image, but seeming to drift away. "This is the moment you think about what you're doing, who you're choosing, who you will love. If it's right, Eddie, this can be such a wonderful moment." She turned to him. "You had to live without love for so many years, didn't you?" Eddie said nothing. "You felt that it was snatched away, that I left you too soon." He lowered himself slowly. Her lavender dress was spread before him. "You did leave too soon," he said. "You were angry with me." "No." Her eyes flashed. "Okay, yes." "There was a reason to it all," she said. "What reason?" he said. "How could there be a reason? You died. You were 47. You were the best person any of us knew, and you died, and you lost everything. And I lost everything. I lost the only woman I ever loved." She took his hands. "No, you didn't. I was right here, and you loved me anyway." Lost love is still love, Eddie. It takes a different form, that's all. You can't see their smile or bring them food or tousle their hair or move them around a dance floor. But when those senses weaken, another heightens. Memory. Memory becomes your partner. You nurture it, you hold it, you dance with it. "Life has to end," she said. "Love doesn't." Eddie thought about the years after he buried his wife. It was like looking over a fence. He was aware of another kind of love out there, even as he knew he would never be a part of it. "I never wanted anyone else," he said quietly. "I know," she said. "I was still in love with you." "I know," she nodded. "I felt it." "Here?" he asked. "Even here," she said, smiling. "That's how strong lost love can be." She stood and opened a door, and Eddie blinked as he entered behind her. It was a dimly lit room with foldable chairs and an accordion player sitting in the corner. "I was saving this one," she said. She held out her arms, and for the first time in heaven, he initiated his contact. He came to her, ignoring the leg, ignoring all the ugly associations he had made about dance and music and weddings, realizing now that they were really about loneliness. "All that's missing," Marguerite whispered, taking his shoulder, "is the bingo cards." He grinned and put a hand behind her waist. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Yes." "How come you look the way you looked the day I married you?" "I thought you'd like it that way." He thought for a moment. "Can you change it?" "Change it?" She looked amused. "To what?" "To the end." She lowered her arms. "I wasn't so pretty at the end." Eddie shook his head as if to say not true. "Could you?" She took a moment, then came again into his arms. The accordion man played the familiar notes. She hummed in his ear, and they began to move closer, together, slowly, in a remembered rhythm that a husband only shares with his wife. "You made me love you. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. You made me love you. And all the time you knew it. And all the time you knew it." When he moved his head back, she was 47 again. The web of lines beside her eyes, the thinner hair, the looser skin beneath her chin. She smiled and he smiled, and she was to him as beautiful as ever. And he closed his eyes and said for the first time what he'd been feeling since the moment he saw her again. "I don't want to go on. I want to stay here." When he opened his arms still held her shape, but she was gone, and so was everything else. Friday, 3:15 p.m. Dominguez pressed the elevator button and the door rumbled closed, an inner porthole lined with an exterior porthole. The car jerked upward, and through the meshed glass he watched the lobby disappear. "I can't believe this elevator still works," Dominguez says. "It must be like from the last century." The man beside him, an estate attorney, nodded slightly, feigning interest. He took off his hat. It was stuffy, and he was sweating. and watched the numbers light up on the brass panel. This was his third appointment of the day. One more, and he could go home for dinner. Eddie didn't have much, Dominguez said. Uh-huh, the man said, wiping his forehead with a handkerchief. Then it shouldn't take long. The elevator bounced to a stop and the door rumbled open and they turned toward 6B. The hallway still had the black and white checkered tile of the 1960s, and it smelled of someone's cooking, garlic and fried potatoes. The superintendent had given them the key, along with the deadline. Next Wednesday, have the place cleared out for a new tenant. Wow, Dominguez said, upon opening the door and entering the kitchen. Pretty tidy for an old guy. The sink was clean. The counters were wiped. Lord knows, he thought, his place never was this neat. Financial papers? The man asked. Bank statements, jewelry? Dominguez thought of wearing jewelry, and he almost laughed. He realized how much he missed the old man, how strange it was not having him at the pier, barking orders, watching everything like a mother hawk. They hadn't even cleared out his locker. No one had the heart. They just left his stuff at the shop, where it was, as if he were coming back tomorrow. I don't know. You checking that bedroom thing? The bureau? Yeah, you know. I only been here once myself. I really only knew Eddie through work. Dominguez leaned over the table and glanced out the kitchen window. He saw the old carousel. He looked at his watch. Speaking of work, he thought to himself. The attorney opened up the top drawer of the bedroom bureau. He pushed aside the pair of socks, neatly rolled, one inside the other, and the underwear, white boxer shorts, stacked by the waistbands. Tucked beneath them was an old leather-bound box, a serious-looking thing. He flipped it open in hopes of a quick find. He frowned. Nothing important. No bank statements, no insurance policies, just a black bow tie, a Chinese restaurant menu, an old deck of cards, a letter with an army medal, and a faded Polaroid of a man by a birthday cake, surrounded by children. Hey, Dominguez called from the other room. Is this what you need? He emerged with a sack of envelopes taken from a kitchen drawer, some from a local bank, some from the Veterans Administration. The attorney fingered through them and without looking up said, That'll do. He pulled out one bank statement and made a mental note of the balance. Then, as often happened with these visits, he silently congratulated himself on his own portfolio of stocks, bonds, and a vested retirement plan. It sure beat ending up like this poor slob, with little to show but a tidy kitchen.